So this panel is about attracting talent. All right, so we have heard from the previous speakers this morning about the various issues, challenges, disruptive trends in the labor market that we are facing, from technological upheaval to aging population to political uncertainty and emigration, right? So lots of problems. But I'd like to focus a bit more on the solution side to all these in this panel about attracting back the talent to Hong Kong and how can Hong Kong reposition itself to maintain its competitiveness. Now we have also heard, from the previous panelists about some ideas that they have, but I think in this panel we have representation from different industries, so hopefully, some new ideas can be discussed in this panel. So Eileen, Tony, and Peggy, I'd first like to understand the situation in your respective industry a little, and then we'll see that if we can collectively, generate some ideas about attracting and retaining talent in the city that could be useful to all our audience here today. So Eileen, let me start with you. You're from the century-old traditional utilities company, CLP. I'm sure you're probably feeling the effect, the impact of the technological, the rapid technological change. So how is that disrupting your human capital needs? And how, are you finding the balance in terms of retraining, reskilling your existing employees to face, the new era?
Thank you, and good afternoon. I think we talk about energy transition around the world, and really, it's not a transition, it's really a whole of system replacement that we have to do over the next 30 years, and that applies in Hong Kong as it does all the way around the world. And so what does that mean? It means from coal to gas to hydrogen. It means every vehicle in Hong Kong ultimately operating on hydrogen or electricity. It means every building being optimized, and it means all of the infrastructure built to facilitate all of that. And that, of course, can't be just a Hong Kong solution. It requires deep connection with the mainland in order to facilitate that change. And so that's sort of a small problem that we have to deal with. I think we have always taken the view that within CLP that we need to grow and develop our talent from within. That's been a core value of the company, but also something that we see as part of our license to operate, if you like, that we have the quality of people who can deliver the reliability and the service that Hong Kong expects despite this transition. So we have taken that view. What that means in practice is that we are actively growing our intakes for people at all levels and our participation in development programs at all levels. So our graduate program, we've almost doubled the intake of graduates in our business. And then at every development program, we're increasing and accelerating the progress of our people through development so that they are ready for some of these changes. In this market, that's not enough, and I'm sure you've discussed that this morning, that we don't have all of the young people that we need to fill all of those spots. And so we have been progressively reaching out into the mainland in particular and also internationally to bring graduates into Hong Kong, and then also to expand the market, so expand the labor participation, so find more women to come into engineering roles, again through a whole host of different programs. And then also work with vocational institutions to find the people who perhaps missed out on university first time round. How can we grow them, develop them, and so on? And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it is a multifaceted approach. There's not one solution. You have to go wider, go faster, and then also expand the labor pool that is available to us. And we are taking actions on all of those fronts, and it's something that we have to keep going with.
Thank you, Eileen. It's encouraging to hear that you have such a structured approach to addressing the talent needs in your industry. Now, I'm going to go to a very different industry now. Tony, you founded the high-end French patisserie, Paul Lafayette. It's a very different industry that requires people to be creative, to be entrepreneurial and service-oriented. Right? So how has this current situation been challenging to you in terms of finding talent for your business, especially as you are trying to expand your business in the GBA? You know, are you able to attract enough talented chefs and restaurant managers for your business? And how are you, managing the situation?
Not easy. Good afternoon, everyone. I think because it came after 3 years of COVID, you see. And during COVID, I can say it was a good time also because people stay at home. Everybody feel guilty, but everybody needs sugar. So in somehow, it was a good business, and we have staff. But since the opening, I think there is a lot of outflow, and it become really quite difficult to sustain. In a way, we were planning to open more shops, we hold. Let us say the malls open in Hong Kong 10 to 10. We compress the hours from 12 to 8. So we try now to do bringing some talent is a bit more challenging than before. Maybe we can discuss later why and how. Growing in the GBA is maybe a bit more easier by now than Hong Kong because we are expanding in Shenzhen and Shanghai. So I think it's a challenge period for a SME like Paul Lafayette, less than 100 people. But I do think there is some solution in the coming months and years because it's difficult geopolitically and difficult economically. So you see, you have to manage in difficult time, but you have also to adapt to a difficult time.
Thank you. I think definitely the past 3 years has been really challenging for any company in the food and beverage business, right? And thank God that pandemic is behind us and we can move forward. Peggy, let me come to you. You founded the company Link in 2016, which is a platform that links knowledge workers with job opportunities. So can you explain that a little bit to us? What drove you to establish this company, and how do you see, this digital platform as a solution in addressing the mismatch of talent in Hong Kong and other areas in the GBA?
Thanks for having me today. When we founded Link, and I guess it's evolved over the years, and what we are really kind of tackling the problem now is bridging the talent shortage for businesses by providing access to global talent on project basis. So the thesis here is that while there are, of course, like full-time role needs, there are dynamics within a companies where you might have needs that you might not necessarily need a full-time headcount to cover. And especially in this environment where businesses have budget limitations, you've got to manage your resources in a pretty optimal way. And one of the methods to do that is to leverage extended workforce, which is basically consultants or contractors on project basis. So that's basically what we are bringing to the companies that we work with. And we work with different categories of companies, from corporates to investment firms to professional services firms and banks. This is a growing trend, especially I feel like in the past 6 months that we're seeing in terms of in parallel to I think a lot of the layoff news that we're seeing in the media. What happens is also that companies still need to get things done. We actually see a rise in the contract role openings in this period of time.
I think, yes, definitely this sort of digital platforms will become more and more important, for professional services. So, well, do you see LinkedIn as a strong competitor to you?
Yeah, so we do partner with LinkedIn, and I guess a bit of a sort of a sneak peek is we are launching and rolling out a new, venture under Link as well, that is a software business that enable businesses to better, manage onboard pay, handle compliance for extended workforce. We realize that for the extended workforce part of the market, you don't have something like a Workday to manage, and it's very fragmented. companies tend to go through staffing agencies, which has high markup. So we tend to see then a lot of inefficiencies in that, from perhaps a HR leadership perspective. What we notice is that there might be limited visibility into who is in your extended workforce. Diversity metrics in that is also unclear. So we are trying to basically offer a solution now to deliver that visibility and transparency and efficiency.
Thank you. I think, in the earlier discussion today, we also talked about the importance of partnerships between university and corporations, right? I think that is becoming a more relevant, to every institution from both the academic and the industry. I'd like to hear some examples, from all of you, but perhaps let's start with Eileen. How can you draw maybe some examples from CLP in terms of your collaboration with universities in developing the talent, for the future?
Yes, absolutely. So we see collaboration with universities as absolutely vital to our talent development. And we have a couple of initiatives that I wanted to talk about. The first of them is the CLP Power Academy. So this is something that we set up 6 years ago, basically to grow the industry workforce, or help grow the industry workforce in power engineering. When we want anyone to work in engineering, we can't, perhaps not like in financial services, there isn't a competitive market of talent to draw on. It's really us or Hong Kong Electric, and we try to stay away from each other's people because that would be difficult. So we have to grow. We have to grow it. We have a key role to grow. So what have we done? We've basically worked with VTC all the way up to universities, and we have collaborations with several Hong Kong universities and also international universities to create a whole series of vocational programs, diploma level up to dual master's programs, to enable people who are either working today in the industry, never worked in the industry before and want to cross-train. We'll take a pastry chef, but you'll probably not like me. And then all the way up to our own people who are looking to do a applied degree program and create those programs. We work in partner with the universities. What do? We provide one coordinator, our training facilities, lecturers, and then student projects. And the universities provide the students and obviously the professional development and training. We have had 1,600 students come through the Power Academy over the last 6 years in different programs. And to give a sense of our scale, we have approximately 5,000 employees here in Hong Kong, so 1,600 material in that context. And we're growing it. We're expanding now into working with vocational institutions in Guangzhou so that we can cross-train people to work on the Hong Kong electric system, also on the mainland electric system, and be able to move between the two. And so we're trying now to deal with some of the physical barriers of training people and making sure that they have the right technical qualifications. So I'm not saying that every company in Hong Kong can do something at that scale, but it's an example of, I think, where we have to work together with universities and VTC to make sure that we can grow the pool of people who can come into our industry. So I think that's the one that I particularly wanted to share.
Thank you so much. Tony, I wonder if you have any thoughts on this. Have you worked with any hotel schools, for example?
I mean, as Elaine said, is different scale. But from our side, I can say we grow really some talent internally. I can go through, like, since we start in 2010 till today, many, because our training is based on, we have 2 French chefs, quite experienced, running our central kitchen, what we call our business. So many local, 2 of them became like assistant executive chef in 2 5-star hotels. Some others, they run their own business. I think we are growing people internally. This is the best way we can do by today. But I can say it's because the size of the company cannot allow to go otherwise. And we train also the team in GBA in Shenzhen and in Shanghai. Yeah. So this is the way we can grow talent by ourselves.
Well, I'd like to remind everyone that Chinese University of Hong Kong has a very good school of hotel and tourism management. Okay? And, if anytime you're looking for interns and fresh graduates, to join your patisserie, or maybe some of you guys who are in the food and beverage business or hotel industry, welcome to work with us. We have a constant supply of graduates, right, to meet your talent needs. Peggy, anything to add from your side?
I think on that point about students, it's I think I think some takeaways we have had when we work with students ourselves. I realize we have to do a lot of education in terms of, say, having these students to understand there are different careers out there beyond sometimes very attractive ones that they all know about. So the career discovery or education, I feel like, could really, I think, help broaden, I think, the fields that the students would end up considering joining post-graduation in Hong Kong, especially in a market like this.
And I think to add on that, if I may, we have fabulous graduates who join us who are impeccably trained, technically knowledgeable, wonderful, wonderful young kids. Then where we have to do some work is in a couple of areas. So I think on the soft skill side, because we recognize we can't predict totally what skills will be needed in 5 or 10 years' time. No one's good. The universities are not good enough. We're not good enough to predict that. Completely. So you have to create those skills of problem solving, of communication, of analysis, of interpretation. And so we would love to I think, work with universities even more to help develop some of that a bit more, so that when people come out, they have a little bit more of those skills. And then I think an open mindset. One of our graduates, we have an induction session every year, and in fact I'm doing the session next Monday for the new intake. But one of them said last year, "Can the company send me somewhere I don't want to go?" And I thought, well, no, not technically, but that's not the question that I'd like you to ask when you're 22 years old. So I think, again, we're very keen to work to help make sure that everyone who comes out of university in Hong Kong has an open mind, has an understanding of mainland development in particular, and what the opportunities are for them. And if we can work together on that, then that would be even better. So maybe that's a common problem you others in the audience see.
Yes, I think we all agree that universities play an important role, right, in attracting international talent, first of all, right, international top researchers, and at the same time generating, again, the supply of future talent, right, future professionals. Now, on the other spectrum of this discussion is on the policy side, the government policy side. I think government policy is also extremely important, in developing the future professionals for the city. And now, Hong Kong, as you know, the government has been rolling out, quite a few programs and schemes, right? For example, the Top Talent Pass scheme that was introduced in last December in an effort to really draw talent to the city. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about, do you think the government is doing enough? Do you think the Hong Kong government is doing enough? Or, is there more that they can do? Perhaps, Tony, would you like to take this question first?
Tough question. Okay, let's say it is this way. I mean, if you want to attract talent, bring engineers, put him in a super tower, let him work. Is people are coming just as they will spend all their life only to work, or as they want to work and live? So what I can say on our SME or kind of business, I think we need to create more environment which is also outside the business by itself. And SME, I think they are quite good for that, like entertainment, food. I mean, you're having a tough day, you will go for a coffee shop, you will go for a dessert shop, you will go for dinner. Before, I remember when we used to work mostly in Southeast Asia, we just used to run the weekend to come to Hong Kong to spend the weekend in Hong Kong because it was so vibrant. Why? so many concerts, so many F&B, so many things. I think we need to create a lot of things around to bring talent, because Hong Kong has a super infrastructure. It has a very good healthcare. I mean, it has a lot of things, very good education, very good university. But I think there is something maybe still missing by today, which I discovered during the last 3 years. I stayed in Hong Kong during COVID. I discovered hiking every week. Hong Kong has a super trail, has super beach. I think we don't communicate much on this quality life of Hong Kong. We communicate mostly finance or other things come to Hong Kong. I think there is a lot of missing thing in Hong Kong where the government or other institution, they could be able to communicate to promote Hong Kong in more lovely way, quality life way, than just put you in a super glass tower with big office and just work. So this is my opinion.
Thank you so much. I think, yes, focusing more on the soft infrastructure side, soft side, rather than always on the hard infrastructure side, and promoting Hong Kong as a fun city, right? As a fun and entertaining city, rather than just a global financial center, that is. I mean, we have strong, a very powerful financial industry, real estate, consulting, but apart from that, people are not just here to build their careers, they are also here to have fun. So we want to also project the image that Hong Kong is really a fun place to live and work, right? So Eileen, can I come to you next? Peggy. Yeah. This question is for Peggy. Now, Hong Kong has lost a lot of talent in the last few years, as we have again discussed this morning, due to a variety of reasons, that we're not going to delve into. Now, what do you think of some of the unique competitiveness of Hong Kong that can enable it? Right, I think Tony has already mentioned a few, but what do you think are some of the unique things about Hong Kong that could continue to help Hong Kong to attract talent to this city?
There's a very tactical, I think, benefits that we have seen as employers. We have been a big employer of expats as well at Link, and comparing hiring here versus locations like Singapore, the policy around employment visa is actually a huge difference, meaning it's actually a lot easier here. And a lot cheaper as well. So from I guess a company of our size, this makes a huge difference. So we have actually been scaling more here than in Singapore as a result. Singapore also has more limitations in terms of, say, where compensations need to be for expats, and as a result also impact the locals' salary as well. So in a way, I think there is actually a lot of very beneficial, I think, employer-friendly policies in Hong Kong that's actually quite conducive for companies to hire from abroad. Indeed, however, this past year, I think to Tony's point, we have seen some of that outflow as well, and a lot of that, I do agree with Tony. I think the soft side of Hong Kong was what helped us attracted our own talents that we have seen in the past couple of years. So if to your question on whether the government, I mean, there's a loaded question because I think we can always say that everyone can do more, right? But I think if anything, perhaps we certainly can present more of the fun side of the city, which is what attracted a lot of young people to Hong Kong to begin with. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Eileen, you're also an expatriate working in Hong Kong, obviously. So what attracts you to Hong Kong? What are other things that you can add about about Hong Kong?
Well, from I'll touch on a personal perspective, and then a little bit also on the topic that we've covered about what perhaps more could be done. I was incredibly grateful to come here to Hong Kong. I picked the perfect timing, 2019, right? And so, but was here all the way through COVID, and I think also had the same experience as Tony, that I discovered every part of Hong Kong from top to bottom.
You decided to stay still.
And absolutely decided to stay with my family. And I think what attracted me is what attracts many people, that you have this fabulous cultural diversity, which is challenging from a professional perspective. Also the ability to help be part of really meaningful change. to a company, but more importantly to Hong Kong's development. And that was very much part of what attracted me to come here. And I think what we see with our top talent that we're bringing into CLP is those factors are as strong as ever. We just have to overcome a little bit, tell all the good stories, and that is a government thing as well as a company thing. We have to spend quite a lot of time telling good stories just so that people do understand that perhaps what has been portrayed in the media overseas is not actually what's happening on the ground here, and we have fabulous opportunities. In terms of government policy, I see it as something that government and companies have to work together on, and we're absolutely as accountable. But we would be grateful for additional focus on solutions for the middle of our talent. So top talent, great. Actually, we're okay, or pretty okay. But the middle is where all the churn is, sort of middle and junior professionals in our business. And so we do need some more working together and partnership on making it easier to either cross-train or cross-license or bring people in where the qualifications between the mainland in particular and Hong Kong don't quite match. And for us, technical qualifications are critical. And so we have a lot of cross-training and licensing and so on, where I think any efforts to harmonize would be gratefully received. But we have to play our role.
Thank you. Well, thank you to all of you for being great ambassadors of Hong Kong, right? You know, obviously Hong Kong has a lot to offer, but I also like to pick your thought on, you know, the weaknesses of Hong Kong, right? So obviously we all know that Hong Kong is a very expensive place to live. If you look at some of the indices like the Global Livability Index by the EIU, Economist Intelligence Unit, well, in 2023, Hong Kong is only ranked 61st in the world, right? Despite being, you know, a very important major financial center. So that is, I guess, one ranking that the government doesn't want to promote too much. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, you know, is this a concern, you know, for Hong Kong being so expensive and making it difficult, right, to attract people to come here?
I mean, it comes back also to our business. Let us say when we hire French chefs, we have the salary and we have the housing. I mean, housing is really, decent housing is very expensive. So maybe in some areas, the government, if you want to attract talent, if there is some help or some schemes in this area, because really it's a quite expensive city. So this is a bit a challenge. If the policy or some scheme can be done on this area, it would be good. Besides that, I don't think it's something related to our business, because we are not the big company it's capable to pay so expensive here or there.
Thank you. Anything to add from Peggy or Eileen?
I think something you mentioned earlier, Tony, that made me think a little, which is, you know how these past few years with COVID, we all work from home, right? And then sort of there's now a growing trend of young generation want to have that flexibility. And it's not just Hong Kong, it's globally. I think sort of like inherently deep down, we're kind of, you know, looking, prioritize the quality of life point, that priority of that is higher up in terms of how we evaluate opportunities and choices, and health and wellness, right? These things are rising up in terms of priorities. So in a way, that makes whether or not employers or governments, I think, have to think a little bit more about what is it that's positioning, that's presenting to these changes in priorities of workers, generally speaking. And if you look at, I guess, the weakness part, and I guess if you look at some markets out there, not naming the obvious competitors to Hong Kong, at least from what we can see in the media, seems to have some intentional plans on shaping how the economy need to be, say 5-10 years ahead. So I think that kind of conversations that they have, or at least through the media, at least that's how they presented it, from a consumer perspective, recipient perspective, I feel like, you know, there's a long-term plan, there's vision. And there's hence the direction of where things are going. So I guess that communication of the vision, taking into consideration of quality of life, health and wellness, and sort of a more holistic, I guess, picture would be something that I think we can do. Yeah.
Thank you. Eileen, any other?
I would very much agree with both of you, and on that point about vision, we see a lot of our talent now being driven by purpose and what they can contribute to the broader community around them, as well as the work itself. And so the more that they feel part of a bigger, I'm developing Hong Kong, I have the opportunity to be part of reshaping something, the better. When we look at where we draw or have drawn talent from, we've drawn talent from Australia in particular, and also from Europe with renewable energy engineering skills. They're coming to Hong Kong because, to be honest, in some of those places, the policy development is chaotic. Please don't quote me on that one, but but it really is, right? And so here to come here and have that long-term vision, plan, and ability to be part of something is actually very, very attractive. The housing cost is, yes, a very clear factor, but this is also a low-tax environment. So I came here from Australia with 49% tax, right? And so you kind of have to do the maths and work out, is that an equation that works? And so we do spend a lot of people helping people through that, understanding that equation and whether that works for them or not. But I think in the end, they often find that Hong Kong remains a very attractive destination for them when they've done the maths.
Yes. So the high cost here is still balanced with high salaries plus low tax.
So
right?
It's
overall,
a balance. It's not one factor versus another, right? So.
Thank you. Now we've got a few questions here from the audience. So I guess, yes, now it's really open for the Q&A. So you're welcome to send in your questions. So let us tackle the first question here. Well, these questions are all so long and complicated. Now, a graduate from PolyU tourism program in 2022 pointed out that most of the graduate cohort couldn't find jobs in the industry due to COVID-19. How can universities help to return this educated talent to the industries that they were educated in? I guess anyone would like to tackle this?
I thought this was, this leads to a few other questions as well. It's, does talent really need to be defined by industry? My personal belief is that it shouldn't. Because it should be more skill-based and having an open mind, to Eileen's point. And that's how we can unlock some of the gaps potentially, right? Because if we define careers by industry and linear paths, it can feel very limiting to an individual. Career progression, how we define by that in today's society is by linear progression, generally speaking. What I believe and what we're trying to do with our company in some of the new venture that we're working on is to rethink how career progression can be. You can think about your resume instead of going from junior titles to senior titles. Instead of that, think of it as a portfolio of experiences and skills that you develop over time. And I think that is a much more liberating way of thinking about work, and also democratizing and diversifying in a way. So that you don't have to get, say, students graduating. I guess they may come to you a lot. Is you like go to banking or consulting? That's always the question, right? As if there's only two careers in the world. There isn't, right? Like this is actually, you can also even switch between things, and not to say that's encouraged, like to switch jobs too often, but we ought to have that kind of environment where we provide a wider, I guess, a broader way of thinking about career choices. So I was not really answering that question, but I guess
your point is about skills which can be which are transferable
Yes.
in any particular industry, right? Rather than making it industry specific.
Correct,
Right? So we are, again, universities, will make sure that the curriculum is general and broad enough to train out people, with skill sets that are transferable to other industries, right? So we need to have that kind of flexibility in the training and the
Yeah.
education system.
And I was very fortunate myself. It's a bit of personal experience when I was in university. I did computer science and fine arts and finance. So it's very fortunate, but it was because also the school gave me the flexibility to do that. And hence I felt like when I left school, I had to choose again a banking or consulting. I was the ones that asked those questions and made that choice, and then took me some time to realize that I don't have to be stuck in one industry. So I would hope that's something that we can instill in the education system.
Sure. Thank you.
And thank you. And building on that point, I reflecting on that question, because when COVID hit us, off the back of the difficulties and the social unrest in 2019, we realized that there was, I think many companies realized that there was a bit of a crisis for the graduates who were graduating from university in that year. And through the General Chamber of Commerce also, there was a whole program there to offer internships. And many companies offered internships to the cohort that was graduating in 2020, and we also participated in that. So there's a big, right across the industry, internship program to that. And the question made me reflect, so some of that internship has just died down a little bit as we've gone back to normal. But maybe it is needed, and there are cohorts of people who just missed out at that time. And again, there's perhaps an opportunity to do more. And so I'm not pointing the finger. I think, again, we have to, as companies, play our part. But internships are relatively easy to do in Hong Kong. And such a fabulous opportunity to reconnect people back, whether it's with the same industry or a different industry, to give them the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm mindful of the time, but I want to quickly just go to the next question here. So do you see ownership and workplace satisfaction contributing to talent attraction and retention in Hong Kong? So how important is workplace satisfaction and ownership?
Maybe I take as our case as ownership. I think Hong Kong is a very good place, and this is why you have around like 360,000 SME, which are all owners. Hong Kong has a quite easy to set up a business. Hong Kong has a flexibility in the labor law. Hong Kong, I think you can attract talent too, but it depends what kind of industry. If you want to go like in our business, we have a few shops. I mean, you have your capex will be high. If you do some business related to less capex, I think it will be more easy, because also here the relation with the landlord is not easy at all in Hong Kong. So in somehow ownership is it can give you a chance. Tax are low too, and as I said before, so the infrastructure is very good. So in somehow is a very good place to be, and I still suggest now the talent is a question of after COVID, many things changed, not only in Hong Kong, to be honest, it's a global change regarding the talent. There is some deficiency in this area, but I think in the coming, build it slowly Hong Kong in a soft way, I think it can attract.
Thank you.
I think the workplace satisfaction piece is absolutely critical, and I think one of the things that we're trying to do, I mean, we started the conversation saying that we are a traditional utility company, and one that relies on people following processes, procedures in order to ensure that our electricity is reliably delivered. So it's a very compliant, process-driven organization. But we decided to try something new last year, which is what we called our Culture Jam, which is really an organization-wide conversation, two-way, through social media to engage our people. So not a traditional engagement survey, but a two-way conversation over several days with 5,000 team members participating, sharing their views on questions, interacting with each other on what was important about about our working environment, their relationship with their supervisor, what they felt proud of in the company, what we thought we could do differently. And so that's something that we say is if you're going to talk about workplace satisfaction, you have to have a conversation. In Tony's business, you can just go and talk to people. In ours, we need to do it a slightly different way, and we wanted a conversation between mainland colleagues and Hong Kong colleagues as well. But that's something that we see as absolutely a foundation to opening up our culture, letting people have a voice, and hearing from the grassroots about what's really, really important to the organization. And it's something we see as vital to continuing to attract talent to our company.
Thank you. We ran out of time, but just to conclude the session again, can I have each speaker just summarize very quickly, 10 to 20 seconds, what's your thought or takeaway, for our audience today? Start with Maggie.
Yes.
Okay.
It feels to me like this is the window of time to really think about redefining work, what work is, what work means. Work has a broader definition now than before, considering what we just talked about is also the environment, the culture, the quality of life. It's not just compensation, it's not just progression. So it's a very interesting time given AI advancement and everything. We can't be in the backseat waiting for changes to happen. We've got to take control and try to redefine that ourselves. And Eileen mentioned it a couple of times, it's everyone's responsibility, businesses, employees, government as well. Yeah.
Okay.
From my side, maybe a bit different. I think people live and grow with hope. I think if we can cultivate a more positive, more hopeful, more soft, as we discussed before, I think slowly things will come, really. It will take some time because we move from difficult 3-4 years, and the economy globally is difficult everywhere. So you have the first is to adapt, but keep hope, and creating hope will help in the future to come back to what Hong Kong was used to be before. Thank you.
Eileen?
And I think the last point from me is about partnership and collaboration. We've all got problems and challenges, but I think there are some real examples of what we can do to work in partnership with each other, whether it's universities and companies or other organizations, to solve them. I think the solutions are there. It's a partnership.
Thank you very much again. Can we give a round of applause to our panelists for sharing their thoughts and insights with us today? Thank you.